All right. As a preliminary matter, I'm Brian Colleran, Chair of the Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. So,
Mary just came in.
hey, there she
Okay.
is. Sorry, I just was looking at the names. So you guys can all hear me? Just shout I or something.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I'm
I
here.
can hear you. Perfect.
Yes.
And Sam, do we have most people that are supposed to be here?
Yes. Yep. Well, we have enough to have a meeting, so.
We have a quorum.
Great. So good evening. This open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings. This might be an old version. This feels.
It is. That's definitely an old version.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Well, then, all right. So, skip past that part. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this recording. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the Town of Newbury's website underneath the agendas portion of the Conservation Commission website. And we recommend that members and public follow the agenda as posted, unless I, the chair, know otherwise. For ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes, I'm going to introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their opening remarks, I'll go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Additionally, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please remember to introduce yourself for the record. And please, for any responses, wait until the floor is yielded to you. And then if members wish to engage with others, let's not talk all over each other. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So.
Can I actually, sorry, can I throw one more thing in? I was asked to highlight this point very.
Did we lose Sam?
Will, can you guys still hear me? Something got frozen.
No,
Start
do
again.
that again.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So when we go through each agenda item, whoever is presenting for that agenda item, you'll have your chance to go through what you have to say, do your presentation, and then it'll be a chance for the commission to discuss the project amongst themselves. And when they are ready to ask questions, try not to interject on anything until questions are asked, just to help kind of make things go a little bit more smoothly, because we've been seeing some issues with that. So I was just asked to highlight that point, that when it's time for questions to be asked, you'll be asked questions. And until then, try to hold them until it opens back up.
Perfect. Perfect. That seems totally reasonable. So then let's get rolling. I didn't do the full script, but that's all right. I think we got the idea. So we have our next regularly scheduled meeting is listed as December 21st of this year. And now it appears we have 4 sets of minutes on the agenda to approve: September 7th, November 2nd, November 12th, and November 16th. Did anybody get a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Any feedback, any commentary, anything of note?
No.
All right. Yeah, Mary.
I had a couple of quick things. One is
on the later minutes, you have everyone's name with the box but they're not checked or anything. So some of them, I know, like I wasn't at and whatnot. I don't know how you.
Yeah, when I
Post.
post, so I save it as a PDF before it gets posted. So I'll check it off, and I keep notes of who's at every meeting, and if people show up late or something like that when they've come into the meeting. So I usually check it off after I save it as a PDF, because I
Okay.
can't check it off when it's actually in
So you're sending them to us as Word documents so you can continue to edit them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, and the only other point I wanted to make was on September 7th, under Nathan Gray, you describe how he is, he's withdrawn the notice of intent, but there isn't any description of why. And so I would just suggest that that be edited to say that the notice of intent was withdrawn at the recommendation of the commission, since there was no further work proposed other than responding to the enforcement order. I think originally he filed the notice of intent because he intended to do work in addition to what was in the enforcement order. And so just that clarification, otherwise I'm all set with all the other minutes.
Right.
And I think
All right,
also
thank
that
you.
one of the minutes indicated that completion of that work by December 15th, which is coming up, which we can discuss later in the meeting.
So then, and everybody else is good, right? Nobody else picked up on that or something else? Okay. So with those amendments in mind, does anybody want to move to accept them?
I would move to accept minutes of September 7th, November 2nd, November 12th, and November 16th, 2021.
So moved.
All right. Roll call. Bradley,
Approved.
Daniel,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes. Yes.
and Mary.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. Great. So moving on into our public hearings. Town of Newbury, 81 Central Street, Mantor Fields, a request for determination of applicability for work to remove the existing 5 by 10 foot steel plate used for brook crossing and replace it with an ADA compliant footbridge in the same location. So I presume, Jack, this is your presentation?
Jack and Mark Sant.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, hi, evening. Sorry, Brian, I was unmuted. Yeah, I'm part of co-project guy with Mark, and I'll defer to Mark for the moment for the initial presentation of what we're hoping to bring to the Central Park Fields. So I'll defer to Mark Sant, who sits on the Newbury Rec Committee himself.
Yes, again, as Jack just said, Mark Sant. I'm on the Newbury Recreation Committee. I put this proposal forward. The goal is to increase more passive use of the property that is currently there. Starting off with a smaller project that would connect the Central Street recreational environmental resource area down the lower path towards Triton. We do know the number of people enjoy using that path. Currently, the steel plate that is there is 5 feet wide, and then it just drops off to the, I can't call it a stream, but a water area. And the goal is to replace it with a more appropriate bridge with handrailing. So it's attractive. It would help bring people through there. It'd be safer. So I don't know how long you want me to talk for, but I prefer to be brief.
Okay, we can work with brief.
They know where to go for length for sure, Mark.
All right, well then, let's turn to the commission. Does anybody want to ask any questions, get any insight? I know Sam and I spoke about that today, and Sam's got a detail that maybe we ought to throw in sooner rather than later.
You want me
So
to?
Sam, why don't you fill everybody in?
All right, so I did look into this a little bit, And Dan, you were correct. That area is actually in the ACEC. The ACEC is kind of funky. It sort of pops up and encompasses that small, I believe on most maps, it's labeled as a brook. And so it does actually come up and it sort of encompasses that little, that area. So it does fall within the ACEC, and it is in the coastal zone area as well. So I believe it would be classified as tidal. I don't know if I would really say that the marsh really comes up into that area. It is close by, but I do believe that that brook does feed into the marsh as you kind of go further down it.
Okay. So then, with that being said, Dan, since you started this conversation, you want to sort of lead?
Well, I would just say that there's some sensitivity there because of likely proximity to ACEC. It's in the floodplain. But that being said, I don't really see what's proposed as being, a significant impact necessarily, more so than the steel plate. So, but I do have other questions just about the size of the structure, the ADA compliance, how that can increase the footprint of this structure quite a bit. And, I would say I have questions about details of the structure.
Okay. I mean, why don't you just take it? We'll take things out of order a little bit since, you paid a little bit more attention and we're on your topic. You might as well finish your thought, so to speak.
Well, it's just, again, I think to fully understand the project, we need to know, I think we've got some idea of width. I don't think we have any idea of length necessarily. A lot of that is dependent on how the structure is put together, how high off the ground it is. How it's anchored is important. And I'm not convinced that concrete, digging holes and pouring concrete is really necessary. That might create more impact than just setting some timber on the ground there and pinning it down with rebar or something like that. I think we need more details on the actual width, length. I don't really think I care how the thing's actually built. Just we got to have some idea of the amount of coverage that's taking place.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Let's go back. We'll start at the top. Frank, you want to add in?
I'm familiar with the location of this, so I can't really speak to it. My question would be, will it have any impact, replacing the steel plate with a wooden bridge, I'm assuming, would that have any impact on wildlife habitat, restricting flow of any of the brook or whatever we're calling that? Those would be.
Yeah, Frank, I think I hear you, but your connection is terrible. You might want to, I have connection problems too, and if you call in on your phone, sometimes you get better audio.
I'm not sure why.
That's all right.
I got a lot of that, Brian, actually. If you can hear me, if I'm coming through clear, I'm not sure if I'm clear.
Yeah, no, you're coming through fine, Jack. So let's let Frank figure out his audio and maybe we got lucky, but I think I got the gist of it at least. So then keeping up with our reverse alphabetical out of order. Brad, I'm sorry, I feel bad. You normally you'd be the first on the list. Mary, why don't you go next?
We usually have more detail when we're asked to review something like this. This is work right in the resource, potentially actually, we don't even really know where the resource boundaries are with the material that's been provided. So we don't really have a plan that shows the banks, the resources, where the floodplain is, buffer zones, access to the bridge from either direction that might be in the buffer zone, if you're going to do any improvements there. We usually would this kind of work would typically, we'd have a plan showing the profile of the structure, so we would know whether it's how high above the wetland and the crossing that it is, so we know what kind of whether it's going to present an obstruction or how much vegetation it might impact during construction, those kind of things. We don't have erosion control details. So, and normally we would have notice of intent for, I think, this kind of a project. So I agree with Dan that I think there's more information, more work to be done. I don't necessarily object to the project. I just think we need, in order to condition it properly, we need to have more information.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And then Frank, did it again, sorry. Brad.
I think Mary encapsulated my thoughts exactly.
Okay. In terms of my own commentary, I think I'm just going to second Brad's thought. Mary put it well. To Sam's point, we're just sort of finding out that it's in the ACEC, and that's sort of the kind of thing that would be nice to know at the get-go. So if we can get the plans put together better, and I think Sam is more than happy to help with that. Yeah, we can have a better conversation next time.
That sounds great. It's sort of what I was anticipating. This allows me to have the opportunity to go to the town administrator requesting funds to do a proper plan and survey in order to move forward with this.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, then in that case, when would we like to pick this back up again? Do you want to continue it until sometime in January, perhaps? Sam, do we know our 2022 schedule yet?
Yeah, I believe. So our first meeting in January, I believe, is going to be January 4th. And that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about, was the potential for going back to one meeting a month, but I don't know how you guys feel about that. I don't know if things have slowed down quite a bit. So I don't know if we want to continue it to January 4th, or we want to plan on having 2 meetings in January and continue it to the 18th.
Can I interject?
I mean, from my perspective, I was going to say, we need to probably pick up that bylaw conversation again. And so if we're going to maybe administratively do one meeting, that would leave a meeting to do the bylaw stuff. But, we can have that conversation at the end of the night. For now, if it's okay with our applicant, let's aim for that first meeting in January, and then we'll just touch base then. And if you guys are ready or not, you just let Sam know.
Okay, I just don't know how long it will take at my end to work with the town administrator to request the service and then have the work actually done. I think it may take longer than that. So
we can go longer. That's fine. We can continue to February or March. I'm happy to.
I think we should probably consider continuing to February, because we do need to have the materials about a week before the meeting as well. So with the holidays, it's unlikely you're going to be able to get much done before for the early January meeting.
Oh, absolutely. And again, no work would be done if it was to be granted and all the paperwork was in place. Nothing's going to happen until the past spring anyways. So it's not like it's time sensitive. So I'd rather not be put on the agenda to be taken, because we're not ready to get taken off and have that dance. We can postpone it until late February, and by early February, we would know precisely where we stand and can either go forward or push it off later. Does that work for people?
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So our
So
first
then-
meeting in February would be February 1st, actually.
Okay,
So I would make a motion to continue the meeting to February 1st with the applicant's consent.
Second,
all right. Roll call, Brad,
aye.
Dan,
Yes,
Nick, and Mary.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right, so we'll see you guys on the 1st.
Thank you much
February.
for your time.
Hey, thank you. All right, what's on the agenda next? Next, we have Gerald Tendetti at 7 Hutchins Way, DEP number 050-1370. A notice of intent to replace an existing single-family home with a new home elevated on pilings. And this is continued from November 16th.
Gerald, do you know, is that Tom's phone number right there? Is that him?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I know that Tom he's in Newburyport as well. He has quite a few things on the agenda in Newburyport, and he did say, I spoke with him this afternoon. He said that if there aren't any questions or anything, he is okay that if you guys are comfortable with it, to just have you vote. If there aren't any questions or anything that you have for him. If not, we can push it off until he's ready to come in, until he gets here.
I think we were holding
Okay.
off on ZBA. Is that right? Was that why it was continued before?
Yes, I
Sure.
believe it is there's something, and Gerald, it hasn't gone through ZBA yet, has it? I think you're just,
Yeah, we presented to the ZBA and they had one question to review with town council. And that has been done, and I think we're going to be there Thursday. And everything, it seems to have been resolved. The chairman sent me a letter pretty much saying the project is ready to go. So I think we're going to be okay. There will be, and then were never any issues about coverage. It was a definitional issue about a bedroom. That was the item that had to get cleared up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not remembering that we had anything on this one,
We didn't.
but anybody refresh my memory if there was some point of discussion that I'm forgetting.
The question did come up and I brought it up about lot coverage, but I think Mr. Fandetti just articulated that that was not an issue and was the purview of zoning and planning more so than conservation.
Yes,
Yeah.
lot coverage is, at the 20%.
Yeah, I'm just skimming the materials and I'm not remembering anything. So I think you're right.
I believe last time it was, I think Tom actually continued it with the intent of getting into ZBA and having the decision from ZBA before we got the decision here, so.
So in the effort of time for the homeowner who's been here, this I believe is his third meeting before us. I would make a motion to approve conditionally based on the approval from ZBA.
I would second that.
Yay.
Okay. In that case, roll call. Brad,
Aye.
Dan,
yes,
Frank,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes, with the standard Plum Island special conditions.
I don't know what I want to do. I think I'm just going to vote no, just because we don't have the ZBA decision on paper and we got in trouble for that in the past, so it doesn't change anything, obviously. But I don't like that the ZBA hasn't actually formally finished their job yet.
We can
But
make our
whatever.
decision unconditional on ZBA. I mean, if that changes your feeling about it, Brian, we could just approve it. Obviously, they still need ZBA. We don't need to condition.
Right. No, the hang up simply, and to Brad's point about memory, we held back because Tom wanted ZBA's decision, and I don't remember if that was a formal or an informal decision he was looking for. So I'm just concerned about carts and horses and town paper flow, but yeah, it's not enough to. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't want to get in the way and slow this down anymore.
All right,
Yeah, as I recall, one of the issues with the board was they wanted to see, they wanted us to submit a complete set of plans, which we had done. I think that was the primary issue at the time, at the last meeting.
I believe we just voted and it was approved, right? 4-1.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good luck with your
Yes.
project. Love the
And
Christmas
lady.
tree.
Yes, Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next
Okay.
up on the hearing agenda, we have David Manti, 0 Pine Island, DEP 050-1330. Continued notice of intent to construct a dock/pier ramp and floating dock within the Salt Marsh Resource Area in ACEC. Continued from the 16th of November. We obviously are missing Tom.
And I actually, I spoke with Tom about this as well. He thought that maybe at the last meeting, we had continued this to the last meeting in December. So I may have put this on the agenda by mistake. But he did ask for a continuance, but I know we do have Mr. Manti here with his hand up, so I don't know if he has anything that he'd like to say.
Yeah, I
before-
was just trying to confirm. It was December 21st.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, I
it's
apologize for
definitely-
that. That was my fault.
No, I was surprised I saw it on the agenda tonight, but if we could, do it on December 21st. We're just having a little bit of a hard time getting an engineer to redesign all the plans, if you will. I don't know if everybody's in, holiday mode or nobody's getting back to Tom on the drawings. So I didn't know that request was gonna be, this drastic on this project, but so that's the problem we're having. So hopefully by December 21st, we'll have some kind of drawings for you. Engineered plans.
Okay. Well then, in that case, who'd like to make a motion to, or do we need a motion
don't-
from Mary?
We don't even have to. I guess it sounds like, because it's misscheduled, so we don't need to continue it.
Correct. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Manzi.
Thank you.
Wow, this is amazing. We are into certificates of compliance. Yeah, this is like a jinx. Okay, Sam, what do we got? We've got Michael Kirkpatrick at 8 12th Street, DEP 050-1277. Request for a complete. Did he abide by the permit and all the such?
Yes, yep, and I checked it out. I actually got the, there were some issues with finding the original plans and everything for this one, but Matt Steinell from Millennium was kind enough to get all of those to me. We also had the as-built plan. I did go out and check it out last week, I believe on Wednesday, and it does look like it is all set. The only thing, actually, I think the only thing that didn't get done was there was a concrete retaining wall that sort of goes almost under the house that was pre-existing, that was proposed to be repaired. It didn't get repaired, but it is all set. It's still standing, still doing its job.
Yeah, I walked by there. It looks good, so.
Okay. And then I'm just looking through what you've got in the file. You got the as-built in electric form and you got all the paperwork.
Yes, I don't know if I have the as-built in an electric. Did I put that in there? I
I'm
don't know.
not seeing one.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that in a PDF, but I can scan it tomorrow if you'd like to see it.
No, this has more to do with making sure you receive all the paperwork. more
Okay,
than
yeah, I
you
do have
doing
it.
And that the
Okay.
file is complete, should we ever have to come back to it, that's all.
Correct.
Exactly. All right, cool. So then, yeah, if you want to finish up the electronic version so that the when the storage unit floods, we don't lose it.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
All right, roll call. Brad,
Aye.
Daniel,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Mary,
yes.
and I will also vote yes. Oh, great. One down. Next one, Tim Sheehan at 435th Street, DPO 501299. So, Sam, did they do it all?
Yes, yep, I have everything for this one as well. I've got the as-built plans and everything, and it all looks pretty good. They did have they had some replication on the dune side of the house, on the ocean side, that looks like it's coming up pretty decently. It's still making its way through, but it looks good. All the building and everything looks good.
Okay. Yeah, that one didn't end up in the Dropbox, it looks like, or at least not in mine. But
Motion to
Whatever.
approve.
Second,
all right, roll call. Brad,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Mary,
yes.
and I will also vote yes. So the next thing we've got is the extension permit for Susannah Gordon at 237 Middle, DEP 050-1195. It's a second extension permit request, and the current one is supposed to expire on March 24th of 2022.
So I
So-
think we may have a problem, Brian, with this one because I have to abstain, I believe, because I was involved in this for the site and the construction of this for the previous owner. I may have to abstain. So we may have to
Well, we still
continue
have
it.
four out of
The
seven.
next
No,
meeting,
we
it looks like
We still
there's
have
still
four.
time.
We still have four that gives us quorum, right?
Frank wasn't present for,
I don't think that
Um,
matters.
Oh, you're right. I wasn't present for the original application either, so I have
well,
to.
the original application doesn't matter quite so much as, and Mary, does it matter that they weren't here last time?
No, because that
Okay.
that would happen if
Yeah,
there was
meaning
turnover
it's-
on the board.
And it's not a
That
public
doesn't
hearing,
matter.
so one thing that I would like to say about this, I know that at the last meeting when this was kind of briefly discussed, that Ben had kind of raised the concern about, this is kind of a really weird plan. I don't know if you guys have looked at these plans. They're a little
Seen it.
funky. It's, there's the dock and then there's like 500 feet of just open marsh. So unless they are only going to be accessing this dock from the water and never walking across the marsh, then it does kind of, there's a little bit of a question mark there. And
Yeah.
Ben had asked that I request that Ms. Gordon participate in the meeting tonight. She is unable to join us, but she did send me an email and let me know that the reason for them asking for the extension was that they don't have plans to build a dock. They wanted the extension in case they decide to. According to the DEP regulations, the only reason that the commission would be essentially obligated to issue an extension would be if there were some sort of circumstances that said, we were entirely unable to complete this project in the 3 years. We need this extension in order to do it. We're already in the middle of it, things like that. And she did not reference any of that. So I don't know if that changes anybody's mind.
And the other
Yeah.
thing that may come into play with this is that there was a tolling period during COVID that automatically would have extended the validity of the permit for about 90 days roughly. So it's due to expire in March, but I think, and maybe you can double check the dates. We had some conversations about this, Sam. I think that adds about 3 months to their March expiration because of that. So there isn't a rush for us to make a decision tonight. They would have time to do that.
Right, and I'd prefer not to have, this discussion without the homeowner here for them. Because, I saw this one and we wouldn't, this is the whole conversation we're having about Mr. Mante's dock, about the research station. It's the same thing. And, I don't know that we would have approved it as drawn now. So.
And I think that was kind of Ben's concern about it, is that if it were being presented as a new project, that this would not have been approved.
Right.
So could we
Right.
Table this until the January meeting?
Yep.
I think that would be a good.
I think we do
Yeah.
have, sorry, I'm pointing like you guys can see my screen. David Manley does have his hand up. So if you wanna.
Yes, I had a quick question. Brian mentioned my name in the conversation, but was this project already approved by a previous board?
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's only asking for an extension, or she. So how can you deny them the project now when it's already been approved? I'm kind of confused, because if mine gets confused and I run into a problem, would mine get denied down the road? And I'll say, well, I spent all that money for nothing because I just got denied 3 years later.
Yeah.
I'm just a little confused. Maybe you guys could clear that up for me a little bit.
Absolutely. So when the permit gets issued, you get 3 years to do the job.
Correct.
And then if you don't do the job in 3 years, you can ask for an extension of the permit. And the extension is good for potentially up to 3 years. And if you don't do that again, you can ask for another extension. But
Only up to 2 extensions.
Right, but it sounds like you're denying this person's project now, not discussing an extension.
It's the second request for an extension. So the project was approved in 2016. And so they've had, 5 years to do it, and they haven't. And the way that extensions work is that, most of the time it's a formality because the project was permitted and nothing's changed since it's been permitted. In this case, you're well aware of our conversations about docks and the ACEC and all that. And so something has changed since 2016. But I don't want to have this conversation about the applicant in this case, without her being here. I don't think it's a good idea to, if we were to not grant the extension, she ought to be here to engage and, make her case. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Now, did you say, yes, thank you, Brian. Did you say things have changed since 2016 as far as the rules and bylaws, or is it still the same currently?
Well, nothing.
So would I
has
fall under
changed.
the same? Would I fall under the same set of rules as these people did when they were granted their project, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, totally. And we're getting obviously off track here a little bit. But
Well,
this
it's the
is
last
fine.
one. You guys are happy mood, so I thought it'd be a good time to ask. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
So what's changed since then isn't the rules on the books. No letters have changed. And Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. You know this as well as anybody. As far as I know, nothing has changed in the paperwork. But what has changed is our awareness as a board that the agencies that should be getting a chance to look at and comment on things have not been consulted. And so, you know, arguably what happened in 2016 when this permit was granted was that the agency that would have said, you know what, this shouldn't have gone in, never got a chance to look at it, and the commission didn't know any better at that point. And so arguably the commission did something illegal, potentially, and nobody caught it.
What
Yeah.
agency are you referring to, Brian, if you don't mind me asking?
I see Mary, you're biting your lip. Go ahead. Hold on, Dave. I see Mary biting her lip. She doesn't like
No,
the way I said that.
I don't know that was necessarily the case that the board did anything illegal. It's just, it's a discretionary project. There's a new
Right.
board. They have a different view of how to enforce the regulations, or some members may. And so that's why you try to do your work within 3 years. That I think that the problem here is that the proponent hasn't advanced the project at all. And so at some point you say, okay, now we're going to pull the plug. You need to start again under the current rules, under the current, whatever the current, policies are of the board at the time. But the project hasn't been advanced, and it was originally, created as kind of an amenity for the property to provide waterfront access, but wasn't really intended to ever be it's not like a deep water mooring or anything like that in this location. So it's up to the board really to decide whether or not to continue keeping the permit active, or letting it expire. If there's really no intention to continue to construct this in any timely way, and they're going to just try to keep it as a valid permit for as long as possible, that's really not what the board is here to do. We're here to approve projects that people want to actually construct.
But Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the last available extension that this property owner gets to request.
They can
After
only
that-
request extension twice. Yep.
Correct. So after this extension expires,
Yep.
The applicant can no longer, has to refile if they're going to do.
They
a
would have to,
whole-
once it expires.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
you can-
So I
Just-
agree with Mr. Mante's question of our statute says that it is completely discretionary by us to grant an extension to an existing permit for up to that statutory period. But it's
Yep.
also within our purveyance to say, there's some members that could say, no, I don't agree with that, even though they weren't part of the original approving board
Exactly.
that
Right.
approved this. So there is that discretionary component that I believe it's up to each commission member's conscience to vote yes or no on this. That's all.
Yeah, but we're not really voting on that, are we? Aren't we voting on extending this to another
Correct.
meeting to give the property
Correct.
owner an opportunity to be there, to voice their
Right.
intention,
Right, that's the vote, yeah.
which I think is,
Well,
I
it's
think
it's
I
two
think
things,
that-
Frank, right? It's two things. So I think Brian's brought up the point that says he doesn't feel comfortable, not putting words in his mouth, but doesn't feel comfortable in voting on this without getting some more information from the applicant. But there is
Right.
the applicant that has requested just an extension on this existing permit, and this would be the last extension that we are even allowed to vote on, whether it's up or down.
So because
where are
we
we?
have questions, we should table it, like Frank said, to another meeting and schedule a vote for that time.
that's what I think we should do.
Well, let's go ahead and do that. And then, since we have time, if Mr. Manti wants to have more conversation about, the ins and outs of the board, we can do that at the end of the topics.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. So then somebody give me a motion.
Move to table this request. till what date?
December 21st.
Or January, does she want to come back on the 21st? Okay.
Well, she actually didn't say anything about when she wanted to come back. I don't know if she is able to join on Zoom at all. So I may actually ask her if she would like to come in to the meeting in person. Come in and join me in the hearing room if she's unable to join on her own. Just see if she can come in on the 21st, or if you want to continue it to the 4th.
Well, so, excuse me, Sam, when does this current permit expire?
The current permit expires on
March
March 24th. But if Mary is correct and it does get that 90-day extension, if the dates are accurate with that, then it would go until
June 24th or something, or actually, it's like 93 days or something like that, but it would take it till June. So there's time if we extend it to, if we table it to January, because it sounds like we don't right now have any continuances to January, to December, the December meeting, and maybe we can avoid having one. Unless you get new filings.
we do have new filings already that are going on for,
Okay.
sorry. No, what a shame.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah,
I move to table this until January 21st meeting.
Second,
Well, December.
December, second.
December. All right.
Okay. So tabled until the next meeting in December on the 21st. Roll call. Brad,
Abstain.
Dan,
Yes,
Frank.
Yes.
You abstained. Mary,
I don't think we need to vote on
Yeah,
this,
we don't really
yeah.
need to actually vote on
Yeah.
it.
because it's not a hearing, so
Yeah.
oh, you're right. It's a tabling. It's not.
just
a
an
vote.
administrative thing. Yep.
Right.
Right. I'm just on autopilot. All right. What else have we got to do here? Other business, discussion to set dates to hold bylaw amendment public workshop sessions.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So
Thank you.
I asked Sam to do this and get us some calendar dates so we could figure out what we want to do with the beginning of the year and town meeting, and having some conversations with the public in a way that hopefully would be a little more timely than it was last year.
So I do have some other dates as well, which I don't know if we want to get too much in depth with all of the other dates since we are missing a couple people. But if you would like to, we can kind of skip the 18th as a regular meeting and set it up. It would still be held as a regular meeting, but set it up specifically as a workshop day, to be able to get, some public input and everything. And I can start advertising for the 18th now, of January, the 18th now, and get town council to come in. We can kind of, for lack of a better phrase, aggressively advertise to people. And, that way we can get some actual participation from people to be able to give some input and everything. Put it on social media, put it on the Newbury News, Newbury Chatter, things like that. I'm sure Jack Rubicki would be more than happy to post it in all kinds of places. He does that with pretty much everything already. So, I would be happy to reach out to him and say, hey, can I send you a sort of press release and say, this is what we're doing. We want people to come. We want people to show up. We want your input for the 18th, just to make it nice and easy as far as scheduling goes.
Sam, excuse me, have we cleaned up administratively all of the things with this? I don't believe we've completed that, have we? We had typos, we had grammatical things that we had to take care of in this.
So I know there were some, like kind of like what Brian said with when we had the meeting last time, there are some typos in the current bylaw that aren't being touched at all. Nothing with the current bylaw is being touched. I mean, I can go through and check for typos and stuff in the current proposal, but I think that maybe, you know, a typo here and there with the current proposal is not quite as much of an issue as if, you know, we were to say, okay, next month after we finish this meeting, that's when we're going to send it in as, you know, this is the bylaw that we want to propose. This is what we want people to vote on. But everything has been posted on the website. There is an entirely separate sort of web page link on the conservation webpage specifically dedicated to the bylaw amendments, and it's got the current bylaw, it's got the red line version that has all of the like tracking on it, and it's got a clean copy of the proposed amended bylaw. So that's all up for people to see.
Okay, I wasn't aware that we had all of that cleaned up. I just don't want to give anybody any detractors to this,
Right.
any ammunition to be able to come in and say, well, you spelled was as were.
And you know, I think that's something that we can kind of bring up to people at the beginning of the meeting. Like, listen, this is supposed to be a workshop for the actual meat of what's going into the bylaw as opposed to the fine tuning. And, you know, there can be a fine tuning meeting after we get people's input and after we kind of get a good idea of what the bylaw is going to look like when it gets proposed. And, you know, we can have a kind of separate meeting that's maybe not necessarily open to the public, that's just specifically for not adding or subtracting anything, but it's just for that sort of editing, formatting, things like that.
I think it'd be really helpful to have a meeting, a workshop meeting, and potentially with town council without public input so that the board could get some consensus on what it is that they want to present, and then have this meeting on that without having the distraction of a lot of public input while we're trying to figure out what it is that we want to do. So I think we have a draft that's been circulated of a proposed bylaw, but there's some new members, and there's been discussion about different parts of it maybe being changed a little bit. So it would be helpful, I think, to make progress, to be able to look at that first and make sure we're all in agreement that what we have is what we want.
Yeah, and
I don't even know if there's going to be unanimous agreement, or there needs to be. So
would
yeah, and to Mary's point, I don't know if we are all on the same page, or even know if we're on the same page on where we're going with this.
Right.
So would we like to maybe set up for before the 18th, set up a meeting with town council? I had a couple dates, like I said, for that, the week of January 10th, the 10th, 12th, and 13th are all potential days that, you know, maybe set up a meeting with just the commission that's closed to public comment and town council to kind of get a few things hashed out, and then set up a workshop meeting for the 18th? Or is that's not enough time?
I think we don't need to do two, but because town council wanted to meet with us anyway on open meeting law, right?
She did, yeah. And we're that, again, kind of with the whole Cricket Lane thing, that sort of completely fell by the wayside. I had way too many things to do to worry about setting that meeting up.
Right. But I think that maybe if we use town council that way for one meeting, and then figure out where we are, and maybe have her sit in on our workshop to make sure we're not going astray too far on some of our ideas.
Yeah.
What is the date of the town meeting?
For what?
What is
Town
the
meeting?
date of the town meeting?
Spring town meeting?
Believe it's April 22nd, maybe. It's April 20 something. I can't remember what the exact date is.
And you have to have stuff on the warrant, what, a month before or something?
Yeah, something like that.
April
Yeah, so
21st.
Sam, why don't you send an email out to everybody with a couple of dates that we could do late January, February, for these sort of listening session things, right? Because, Brad's right, like the conversation we had last time, Brad had some questions about, the ecological angle that we were trying to put in, and I had to be reminded by Ben, that like, oh yeah, that's why we put that in, right? And so there's one conversation that, certainly isn't settled as a group. But then at the same time, I think a lot of the stuff we did cover made a lot of sense once we talked about it. So hopefully, I think, if there's anything to disagree about, it can be relatively targeted, the conversation wise, rather than, the broad body of the text. And, if we want to agree to disagree on something, we can agree to agree on the other things.
Right.
And then I think that the listening part, is arguably we could do that without having decided ourselves what we do or don't like, because in the end, if there's no public buy-in and there's no public understanding and there's no public comprehension, then there's not going to be a public vote in support, and so the more opportunity to engage, even if it ends up being counterproductive, I think is going to be the better choice. Even if the people show up and they don't like what we're proposing, like, let's hurry up and find out rather than finding out at town meeting.
So can
I agree.
can I throw out a follow-up suggestion maybe? So maybe try to set up January 18th for a meeting with town council. We can try and do the open meeting law training and maybe try to set that up for like a short discussion about the bylaw, and that meeting would be closed to the public. And then maybe set up for the second meeting in February to be a workshop date.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think we can close the meeting to the public. We can close the meeting to public comment.
Right, sorry, yes, to
We
public
can
comment. That's
close
what I
the
meant.
meeting
Yeah,
to public,
sorry.
especially if we're getting training on open meeting law.
Right, yeah.
Part of
Sorry.
this closed meeting that is being proposed.
I know what I meant. Yes, you are correct.
Just semantics, Sam, that's all. I know. It is Tuesday night.
Think before you talk, Sam.
No,
Yeah,
that's
so it
okay.
would be closed.
I've been accused of that many times.
So that second meeting in January, the 18th, would be closed to public comment. And that would be for the open meeting law training and kind of a short discussion about the bylaw amendment, and then set up that second meeting in February. So the first would be like the regular meeting, and then the 15th would be a public workshop day for the bylaw.
Yep. The only issue is if you then have to have another public meeting or two before it needs to be on the warrant, you're squeezed a little bit in time. So
Yeah.
That's a busy February.
Yep.
Well, has
Can I-
the spring meeting actually, the spring town meeting actually been scheduled as of yet? We don't even know. Sometimes they have one in the spring, sometimes they have one in the fall, right?
I believe as of right now, they are planning on having it in the spring. And I can reach out and check and make sure. And if that is the case, then yeah, it would probably be a busy end of February, beginning of March, just to have at least one more meeting to, bring the public in again. But
Yeah, this should not be rushed by any stretch of imagination,
I
unless
agree.
we want it to go down in flames, right?
I agree. I think we should take our time and do it the right way. And if it means we miss the spring meeting, then we wait until the following meeting.
Agreed.
I think the biggest thing we need is buy-in, as
yeah,
Brian said. And if everyone doesn't buy in, then what good is it,
Yeah. And, we did this last year. And so in theory, everybody who tuned in last time, we should be able to get them back on wavelength and tune in again, with relative ease. Like Sam said, we know a little bit more about advertising at this point.
And
Jack will probably share.
I can even
Go
just
ahead.
to kind of make things go, sorry, again, think before you talk. Not necessarily to make things go a little bit faster, but maybe to make things a little bit more structured, ask people, say, hey, in the sort of press release for the meeting in February, to say, hey, if you have anything that you want to say, if you have any comments to make on anything, send them to me in email. Send them to me in an email so we can kind of get, maybe at that point we can say, a month ahead of time, we've now received 15 emails from people. I can throw them all in a big document, send them out to all of you guys, and we can kind of plan on maybe addressing some concerns that people have before they have to ask them in the meeting, to kind of make things
Yes.
a little bit more streamlined, so to speak.
But I do
Yeah.
think, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea, but I also think it's important that we get public input
Right.
in public.
Right.
So we need to
Yeah,
understand what people's fears and passions and concerns are.
And
in
let
the
people know,
public
like,
forum.
send me an email with concerns that you have, but also be prepared to come into the
Defend
meeting
them, right.
and, voice those,
Articulate that, yep.
when that
Yeah.
topic comes up.
And Sam, if you were to take that approach, you could engage with, the various social networks, let's say, right?
Yep.
And, we don't necessarily have to say, hey, everybody, here's a 8-week early invite to a meeting.
Right.
You could just say, hey, we're going to do this. Please send us what you know. Please send us what you're concerned about. We're going to compile it. We're going to see it all. We can prepare, right? Like, to get the ball flowing, so that, or the juices
Right.
moving, right? So that when we do have that public moment, everybody has had plenty of forewarning. They've had time to put their thoughts on paper. And that would be really, to my mind, that sounds like a really constructive and sort of engaging opportunity to make sure that anybody who has a chance to say something is given it, even if they can't make the date and time that we end up doing it in the open.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
That sounds like a good idea. I'm
So
in favor.
are we good with doing the town council meeting on the 18th and a public workshop on February 15th? I can start advertising that now.
Yeah. And just pull in, get the wool, start gathering the wool, pull it in.
Yeah,
I will be away on the 18th, but I may be able to call in, but I will be away on that date
okay.
in January.
I think we're
Are we concerned at all about the February meeting being the day after Valentine's Day? Is that an issue?
I mean, that'd be kind of fun if it was an issue that, we're all too busy, whining and dining, but I think we should be good by that, personally.
Okay. I'm just speking from a hospitality perspective,
I would.
You may be tired.
It's a busy time in hospitality, yeah.
Well, let's put it on the schedule and we'll see if it gets in the way. If we have to move it later, we can, or if we have to adjust it, we can. But it's a good catch. I like the observation. All right. So does anybody have anything else they want to cover? I know I said Mr. Manji, give him a chance to talk and ask questions if he wanted to, while we had a 1-hour meeting instead of a 5-hour epic slog.
I have one other piece of business, Brian.
Yeah, go. What do you got?
Just quickly on Nathan Gray, we had told him he had a December 15th deadline for completing the work related to the enforcement order. And I'm just wondering from Sam, whether anything is, have you seen any movement on that since that's coming up next week?
I have not heard anything from him, and I wish I didn't have to admit it, but I actually haven't been down there in a while. I haven't gone down Orchard Street in a while.
So
Unfortunately.
yeah, if you could just check on that and just,
Yeah. Yep,
maybe
I can
focus a little
take a
bit.
ride down there tomorrow
Okay,
and check it out.
thank you.
And Brian, if we're done with that topic, I just wanted to mention, I think we should not completely forget about Great Meadow. Checking that out, and maybe Sam can kind of familiarize herself with the reporting part of it. I don't know if anything's come in reporting about the activities there this year, or if we don't care about that, but just, I'd like to think we don't forget about it.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to put it, because, yeah, it's exactly right. Yeah, so Sam, as long as you're not too swamped with everything, have a look at that, because he's right. We do need to make sure we don't drop that ball like we discovered that we did over the summer. Any other hanging chads from other things? Okay. So then, Mr. Manti, do you want to ask questions?
Yeah, I kind of would like to. I hope I don't bury myself here. That extension you were speaking of earlier and the size of that project, that thing is massive. I mean, mine is a tiny little piece of that pie, if you will. And that one got approved, back in 2016. And I believe someone had mentioned it was, the discretion of the board and their point of views. But if the law is the law and that was permissible, it got passed, but mine seems to be running into a lot of roadblocks. And like someone had mentioned, it's 500 feet to get to it across the marsh. I would be getting out of my kayak or small boat, staying on my floating dock, going up a shorter gangway, and just going on the catwalk for a couple hours a weekend maybe, and leaving, fishing, enjoying the birds, taking pictures, whatnot. And I don't seem like mine is ever going to pass. So if that's if the board looks at it like, well, that board made a horrible decision. Was it a horrible decision, or was they were just abiding by the bylaws? Because I'm looking at your current bylaw changes under section 10. Do you even have a jurisdiction over the area where I am? Because why are you including section 10? It says Great Marsh area of critical concern shall include the portion of the state approved Great Marsh ACEC area. So why are you including it in the new bylaw changes if it's already there?
Yeah, so
I don't know if I'm confusing you guys or I'm interpreting.
No, what you're reading exactly right. What we're doing with that is we're sort of copy pasting things from other sections of the law so that it's easy to find, right? So that, in your case, right, if you wanted to know where the ACEC boundaries were, instead of sending you on a fishing expedition into the Mass government website, trying to find something on your own, it's all there in front of you. Mm-hmm. Right, it's all in the same spot. So that's part of the reasoning there. To backtrack to your opening question, Mary made the comments about discretion, and a lot of that had to do with the extension rather than the original permit.
It was. Okay.
And then with original permits, you're still right. There is discretion sometimes, right? It depends on which piece of which law and how well written it is. If it's strict and there's no way to wiggle out of it, okay, then it's strict. And sometimes in this case, we have laws that are a little wiggly, and so that is why right, I'm not speaking for the board or anybody else. To my mind, that's why your particular project is a little trickier, because who is supposed to be responsible for your area is not as clear as it could, would, or should be. we have a certain amount of jurisdiction, and then all of those other bodies that we ask for letters from, right? They all have a different perspective and a different kind of jurisdiction. The ACEC, it's a hard thing to get into without like getting frustrated myself, right?
No,
Because
yeah.
it's supposed to do certain things, and the people who are supposed to be responsible for making those things happen often don't get the opportunity to enact the actions that are supposed to be taken. Hopefully that broadness didn't make it a useless comment, but and so the difference between that project then and your project now is a board that's better educated and informed on some of the things that are at play to consider. And anybody want to chime in, by all means, but that's, that would be my answer.
I mean, I just feel I'm being restricted from accessing my own property. I mean, I bought it fair and square from the town of Newbury, thought it would be a beautiful location to go. But I feel that I'm just beating my head against the wall here. I mean, I don't see how that my rights can be denied. I mean, I have
But we can't really talk about your
that I
project
want to
right
bring
now.
out there. And I can't even bring out a disabled veteran friend with me because I'll have to say, well, we got to wait till high tide, try to get out of the boat, get on the property, and we got to be out of here in 10 minutes because the tide's going out. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mary. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Mary, you want to go down that line?
I'm sorry, Annette, we all heard and appreciated your comments and at the last meeting that were similar, and
Yes. Thank
and
you.
we can go over those again when it's on the agenda. Unfortunately, because it's a
Okay.
public meeting, we can't talk about it now.
Sure. Okay. That's fine. No,
Right.
that's fine.
So like I can, the thread and the needle I'm trying to thread is to sort of be educational broadly without,
Sure.
to
Exactly.
Mary's point,
About being
getting
specific
into
about the
actual
project,
review.
right?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I got off pace a little bit. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
All right. I guess that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for listening to me.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Do we?
All right. Record-breaking meeting. Mary, did you have a little thing there?
No, I was
Before
just
I do the
wondering
roll call?
who Matt was on our meeting that we didn't hear from.
Who? There's another
There was
person.
somebody named Matt that was on the meeting.
Right. There was. That phone number isn't
Hey.
Tom's. Somebody asked that earlier. That's not Tom's phone number.
Yeah, no,
No, it's
it's
not.
Frank.
Oh.
It took me a while to figure that one
You
out. I
did
had
ask
to
that
look
and I
the
looked it
numbers
up.
very carefully.
Okay,
I think
sorry.
Matt
My
actually,
Chromebook,
Oh,
my Chromebook connection isn't.
okay, Frank.
I think Matt might actually be somebody who I've seen before that comes in for the bylaw discussions. So that might have been what he was here for, to listen in on what the plan was for all of that.
Okay. Well, we've got a motion on the table, so roll call. Brad?
Aye.
Daniel?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
And Mary?
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. So everybody enjoy your evening. You have one today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.